Yes, today's guest is an award-winning, highly talented Ugandan filmmaker, visual effects artist, and director known for his exceptional storytelling and cinematic prowess. He has made a significant mark in African cinema with his unique approach to filmmaking, blending compelling narratives with high-quality visuals and special effects. Notable works include The Girl in the Yellow Jumper, Ugandan first Netflix-acquired film, as well as critically acclaimed short films like The Bad Mexican and 16 Rounds. Loukman Ali, welcome to the sunny place.
Thanks for having me.
How did you start into the new year? Did you have a good start into 2025?
I think the older you get, these things just start blending into each other. So, like New Year's is, I don't know, it was just I don't know what it was, Monday, Tuesday. Probably was in bed by when the fireworks started. So, yeah, same stuff.
People usually have a lot of optimism at this time and are setting goals and all that. Are you someone who sets goals for yourself at the beginning of a new year?
I don't know. I'm the type of guy that believes if you want to change something, you change it right there and then. So if I want to start exercising, I have to start today. I don't wait for the new year. So it has never worked for me. Anytime I've tried to put like a new year resolution, it has just failed.
Meanwhile, I wore this shirt especially for this interview in honor of one of your works, Ubuntu Uppercut, inspired by
Yeah.
Kill Bill, I believe, and John Wick. So I'm really
Yes.
psyched that you're here. I think let's see where Lukman's beginning started. You know, in African culture, we usually have meanings to our names or stories to how we got them. Your surname, is there any meaning to it or a story to how you got it?
My mom tells me I was born on a Friday, and someone in our family wanted to name me Juma. Can you imagine? Juma. Me, Juma. Yeah, it wouldn't fit. So my dad was like, "Oh, we should call him Lukman," because he had a friend called Lukman, and apparently that friend of his was quite intelligent. He said perhaps like the name might help.
So you are named after a very intelligent friend of your dad.
For a while, the intelligence didn't show.
And you were born in Uganda, right?
Yes.
Where exactly were you born and how was it like growing up there?
So I was born in Chibuli. My mom is Rwandan, and my dad's dad is from Comoros. That's a tiny island country next to Madagascar.
Really?
And yeah, and my grandmother is Ugandan. Yeah, so I grew up in Chibuli for the most part, then Kisugu, then Muyenga, and then Bukasa. So my life has been around there.
Speaking to you as a director, I know where I grew up, we had a street where it was like 600 meters where I could remember some really distinctive characters that I always thought maybe could make for a good series or movie. Did you have any characters where you grew up where you'd think, okay, this one would have made an interesting character in a series or a movie?
I've actually included some of the people that I grew up with. Some of the stories that I grew up. Some of the stories are from school. I did this school for most of my life. So escaping from school and walking to like the what's that place called? Oh, I forget. Portville. So we used to escape and walk on the railway to Portville, and we would meet farmers and because I'm born in the city. There's some things that I never got to see. So walking on the railway, you would meet people that are like farmers digging for yam and doing all these things, and those things were fascinating to us. Yeah, so there's a couple of things that I've borrowed for my own life, but for the most part, movies were my sort of escape, animation, and yeah. So most of the things that I do are mostly inspired by things that I watched as a child growing up. Yeah, not necessarily my own experiences because I don't necessarily have that many.
Mm. You mentioned one time I saw in an interview, you said you are a family guy, and then you burst out laughing.
Yeah, because because of the animation.
How did I know that would make you laugh?
It's very strange humor. I like that kind of humor. I'm the type of person that's not easily offended. I actually I like comedy that tries to offend me. I'm not unlike most people. I remember when I was living in Norway, I had a couple of friends that used to make what you'd call racist jokes. But some of the funniest jokes, but a lot of people wouldn't see them that way. But to me, I mean, a joke is a joke, you know. If I think it's hypocritical to find some not funny and some funny, because then it means that you're only finding the ones, sorry, the ones that you don't find funny. You don't think they're funny because they're about you, you know. So it's okay to laugh about other people, but you don't want to laugh about yourself, you know. Yeah. So that's what I and I also felt like if you never find white people offended by uh like racist jokes against them, and I always felt like if you're offended by something, it means that you're weak in a way. You accept that you're weak because you don't find all people are not offended by jokes about height. It's only the short ones that are offended. Fit people are not offended by jokes about fatness or whatever. So it's people that are fat that are offended by them. And I'm not saying that any of these jokes. I'm not endorsing these kind of jokes, but I'm just saying when you look at it from that perspective, yeah, you see that the mere fact that you get offended by these racist jokes, in a way, you accept that you're inferior to these people that are making these jokes. That's my thinking. Yeah.
And you mentioned, I think, did you say you had never escaped in school? Were you naughty in school?
Yeah, I didn't escape much, but there's a time I did jump over the fence and escape. I wasn't a huge fan of like traditional education, to be honest. I always felt like uh you know that thing where you feel like you're a fish and you're being judged um with monkeys and they want you to climb trees as good as the monkeys. I always felt like I was talented in something else and school required something else.
And what was it that you thought you were talented in? Could someone see your creative side already when you were young?
Yeah, I was quite creative, like storytelling wise. I remember my first week in school. I was like 5 years old, and already the teachers identified that I could draw. So I was the guy drawing the charts in my first week. I was drawing charts, and to me, I was like, why are they making me do this? Why can't everyone else do it? Because I didn't know that other people couldn't. I thought it was like easy for everyone to draw. Yeah, so that's one of the talents that I had like early on. Yeah. So school for me was incredibly boring. I was dyslexic, couldn't could properly until I was in like Form 1. You can imagine how I got that far without being able to read well. Couldn't spell. Up to now, I can't spell that well. Yeah. So thank God for spell check. I don't know who I should be thanking. I doubt it's God. I thank thanks thanks to the genius that came up with spell check.
And you've been very open about dyslexia, especially in your formative years and how it affected your ability to read and write. And I think I had in one interview where you say that there were stories that died because at that time you couldn't write well and maybe the teachers could not understand your situation so well.
Yeah. So when I was growing up, I remember there was only one teacher in like my entire childhood, only one human being like this that took time to ask what the problem was. Everyone just kind of like concluded that you're just a dumb child. But there's this one teacher, I forget her name, but she took me to the side and she was like, every time we ask questions in class, you're one of the people who answer everything. How come in the exam you can't answer anything? And first she took it in the religious route. She's like, do you get demons? Do you get ghosts? I was like, I just can't spell. I can't spell and I can barely read the questions. So it really, she's the only one that asked. Because in class, anything they asked, I knew it. Like I'm the type of person that when they're teaching in class, whatever they teach, I get it right there and then. I don't need to read. Yeah. Then in the exams, I couldn't really write up those things or yeah. So if we had oral questions, I'd be among the top students. I'd be among yeah. So for a long time, I had all these stories boiling up in my head, and there was just no way of expressing. Yeah. In fact, The Bad Mexican, I didn't even write that film. I wrote like bullet points. Guy is working from home, someone home, like, and the dialogue is like just made up on set. It was written in Notepad, I think. So Girl in the Yellow Jumper became the first script I ever wrote, like with structure.
Interesting that The Bad Mexican was improvised.
Really, yeah. So it was. I mean, you see, it doesn't have a lot of dialogue. So for the most part, it's like this is what the character wants, so it makes sense for them to say this. Yeah, and then the actors could pitch in, and they're like, maybe I wouldn't say it this way. Let me say it this way. Yeah,
And does dyslexia still affect you today?
yeah. I mean, it's not like a thing that disappears once you get older. It's just that now it's not as evident because we have like spell check and also my reading got better now, unless I've never seen the word. Yeah, but for most words, I can pass for someone that knows how to do all these things. Yeah, yeah, but I still have issues. Like if someone gave me a big piece of paper and they told me to read it in public, I would probably be nervous. Like I could read it, but I'd be scared that maybe I'd fail. Yeah. That's,
I read one time, or maybe so somewhere, someone who was talking about what dyslexia looks like for the person that letters play around and change. Is that what it looks like? I might have seen somewhere where you said maybe out of 5 words you only see two. How does
yeah,
that
yeah.
look like?
So, for example, if you wrote something like "the girl is going to school," have you ever seen this exercise where they pull out some words from a sentence and you're still able to read it? So that's exactly what it is. If I'm writing something, some words I might miss, but in my brain I'm seeing them there. So when I'm reading the sentence, everything is there. But when I give it to someone else, there's like 4 words missing, but I couldn't see them. So they have they have to read it out loud, and I'm like, oh, there's a word missing there. I can only see it when someone else or when it's being read out loud. So even with my own scripts, when I'm done writing them, I have to put them in a program that reads them out loud for me. Because then that's the only time I can identify the missing words. Otherwise, when I'm reading it, everything is there. I can see it. So if you spelled my name like, okay, I'm so used to my name, but let's say a sentence, let's say a word, random word, and you pulled out some of the vowels, or I would still be able to see and still see those vowels in there, but they're not there. You get? I don't even understand how it works.
And that's very enlightening,
But
actually.
my just run over the words and assume things are there. Yeah,
Thanks for sharing that. I couldn't have imagined how it is to see through your
so
eyes.
it's very complicated. Yeah.
Let's talk about where your filmmaking journey has brought you. You actually visited university and then you decided to leave. Why?
Like right after primary school, it wasn't for me, to be honest. So by the time I got to university, I'd attempted to drop out multiple times. So when I got to university, good thing is I had supportive parents.
How did that discussion go with your parents?
I'm coming to that. So there's a, I was always interested in technology and my dad was able to get me an old computer when I was like 12, and I started like learning how to use computers. Like this is way back when most people weren't really interested, and I started learning how to do stuff. I got very, very interested in technology. So by the time I finished high school, I kind of had an idea how technology works. I was so engraved in all that. Anyone that's into technology can tell you that the education system we're using is just obsolete. So I could tell that I wasn't whatever I was learning in school might end up not being very useful for me. So by the time I stepped into university, I asked my dad, what should I do? My dad was like, what do you want to do? I wanted to do industrial art or computer science, something with computer and art. So I actually went to two universities. I checked out MOOC and I also checked out Chambogo. Yeah, so what I would do is I would go and sit in the class with the students in like the third year, just to see what they're learning, what are they studying. I was shocked with like industrial art, like the things they're teaching people, the arts they were teaching was like making sculptures, making woodwork, I mean, it's good, but I doubt the future has space for like 1,000 sculptors. You understand? I always felt like with the advance in technology, we're going to get things like 3D printers, and I mean, at the time there were talks about things like that. And going by Moore's law, technology doubles every 2 years. So now with AI, it's like 2 months. So I always knew that whatever I'm learning here it will be obsolete by the time I come out of school. So I just decided to go and learn on the job. I was lucky enough to get a couple of offers because of my art and the fact that I had also taught myself how to work with computers. Uh, I got some jobs, like design gigs and a job as an editor. I had never edited before. So basically, I learned on the job, and I mean, I don't regret it. I don't regret dropping out. I feel like, and now it's even worse. I feel like people should drop out in Form One. They should have like a school that is someone from nursery to like primary seven or Form One. They teach how to think, not these things of cramming. What is a map? They're not important these days. I mean, if you want to know what a map is, you can just Google it. They should be teaching people how to think, like critical thinking. You get these kids to solve problems as a group. So you take them out, they learn while they're like in the wild. So like let's say if your car dies, how do you figure it out? For us who make movies, filmmaking is all about problem solving. I don't have to be a mechanic, but I need to know how to solve a problem like that. So if you teach kids how to solve problems, how to think, how to express themselves, things like that, by the time they get to Form One, then they can jump into what they want to be. Like if you want to be a teacher, from Form One you go straight to teachers college. You learn how to be a teacher. So by the time you're ideally you'd be in Form 4 or Form 5, I mean, you have the skills. Because right now, when you come out of Form 6, and no one can hire you, you're unemployable because you don't have the skills. So what was the point? Spending all those years. And those are the good years, you know? So I think, yeah, so I think people should change the system. Because think about it, as a doctor, if someone is a doctor, their career of becoming a doctor starts at university. Whatever they've had before is majorly interest. Interest. They've been interested in doing that. But why do they have to study all these, like history? Why do they have to study all these things? I mean, it's fine to learn about these things in passing while you're still a child. Oh, by the way, Napoleon did this when you're like 6, and you're like, okay, cool, good for him. But then after, it's like, oof, it's not really that useful. When you think about it, I'm sure there are people watching that are like, oh yeah, it's very useful. But think about it, what has it done for you? You know, what has it done for you? So I feel like if the system changes, people will be skilled at a younger age. Someone is like 19 and they're already a dentist. They can start working, and by the time they are 30, they can afford to buy a house. You know. So I basically dropped out for those reasons. There are still controversial reasons up to now, but I believe in them so much that I'm willing to do it myself. Yeah, and my kids will probably, if I have the power, they will not study for too long.
On movies, do you have a movie that you've watched over and over again?
Yeah, I have a couple of films. Every once in a while, I rewatch Steve Jobs. There's a there's that film with what's his name? Michael Fassbender. Yeah, really like the writing of that film is so good. I rewatch Inglorious Bastards quite a lot. I think I recently just stopped. I no longer watch it from beginning to end as I used to. But there's a couple of films that I'm always rewatching.
Do you enjoy them or you're watching out for something that you can learn and apply?
No, I don't know. I enjoy them. They make me feel good. I still get the same feeling, like the feeling I got when I watched them the first time. There's a film called, I'm forgetting the film, but it's Al Pacino's film, and I tend to watch that quite a lot. Oh, and also Bridge of Spies, Steven Spielberg's film. Yeah, there's a couple of films that I watch quite a lot.
And these are all different genres, or there's a certain genre that you.
I love comedies so much, but it's so hard to get a good one. So hard to get a good one. So the good ones in the recent years, I think one of the good ones has been Hangout. Sorry, Hangover. What am I saying? Hangover. Sorry, I meant Hangover. Yeah. So the few good comedies that I know, I rewatch them. I don't know if you have you watched My Cousin Vinny? It's like a legal drama. It's like a legal drama, but that's really funny. Yeah. Um, because it's hard to get nice comedies, I tend to watch more of the thrillers. I feel like maybe those are slightly easier to make. Yeah, thrillers, action thrillers. Yeah.
Speaking of thrillers, I think there is a time I saw an interview where you said you like these thrillers, but there was one which scared you so much. You started calling people and telling them, I'm alone in the house.
I think that must have been a horror. Now the thing is that most of the time when I watch horrors, it's hard for me to be kind of like feeling engrossed in the movie because I'm looking at the angles, I'm looking at the lighting, I'm looking at when the demon comes out, I'm like, oh, that's practical. Is that practical? Is that VFX? I'm not thinking about the content itself. I'm thinking about how it's made. But there's a film that, yeah, it's called Kurt Russell. Yeah. So I watched the film and it it was so scary because it was so real. It was like I was watching one of those videos where they're actually killing people, like a snuff film. Yeah, so it was, oof, was too much.
You're watching out for production when you're watching horrors or thrillers, so it doesn't always scare you.
It's so hard for me these days to find a movie that is so compelling that I forget all about the film. Sorry, the filmmaking process. You know, there are shows that have done that to me. Like when I've watched the first three seasons of Homeland. Oh my God, I didn't even know I was watching fiction. Uh, the entire series of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul.
The lines are blurred between reality and fiction.
Better Call Saul. I'm so inspired by that. Yeah, yeah. I tried so much to copy it, but it's hard to copy. Yeah, but so those are the times I watch and I don't think about the production if it's that good. But these days it's hard. I haven't been in the cinema for like a couple of months. It is it is very rare for me.
Do
Yeah,
you remember the first movie that you made?
yeah. The first movie I ever made was called Monday.
What was it about?
It was about a girl that didn't want to wake up, like a lazy chick. Basically myself, but in a girl's body. She didn't want to wake up. She had like a couple of alarms, and each time one goes off, she would shut it down. Another one comes back on. She keeps turning them off, and she still gets she gets a nightmare where she eventually wakes up and goes to work, and it's a very visual thing. I don't know how to explain it in words. It's on YouTube. Yeah, you can watch it. Yeah, but that was my first film ever. That Mexican was my second.
I like Bad Mexican. I watched it. Did you have any challenges breaking into the film industry?
Well, initially, before I made the Bad Mexican, I tried to kind of ask for permission, go to these people that were established at the time and ask them, okay, can you guys help me? I want to become a filmmaker, all that stuff. But no one did. But I'm not the type of person that wants to be a victim. So I have an explanation for them. I feel like, I mean, why would they give me that chance? I've not done anything. I don't have the skills. I don't have anything to show what I can do. So I also don't blame them for not taking me serious. But when I realized a lot of people didn't really accept the idea of the film, what I wanted to do. But because I'd done a couple of commercials before,
Mm-hmm.
I was able to convince the few people you see in the film. I was able to convince them. So they came on board. We did that. And that was kind of like my break into the industry, I guess. Because from that, my second film was The Girl in the Yellow Jumper after that one. Yeah. So from Bad Mexican to Girl in
Feedback or challenges when you are starting out affect your confidence in any way?
No, I also think it's so good to make movies when you're still naive, when you don't know what you're doing, because that's the only way you can make films. These films are so hard to make, it's so difficult to write that a lot of times if you know everything, you're likely not to do it. It's terrifying. I mean, you can see from my own example is after Girl in the Yellow Jumper, I was embarrassed by how it turned out. The writing was stupid, everything just didn't make sense. So I decided to start to go back to doing short films. So I did The Blind Date, which was my way of learning how to write again. Well, not again, to write, period. Then I did 16 rounds, and all these shorts helped me understand what the importance of writing character and not just plot. And now I went back to writing features, but you can see I still haven't made any. And that's because the more you know, the more you find out that you don't know. So you keep going back and trying to make things better and trying to make things better and trying to make things better. A lot of times I'm envious of my old self was just jumping in and doing it. So I feel like now I'm becoming a typical filmmaker, just trying to achieve perfection and not doing. Yeah. So
Good points on Girl in the Yellow Jumper, which we shall get into a bit, and the evolving of yourself from when you were still what you call naive to now. But at one point you went to Norway. How did that come about?
Yeah, so I used to do graphics and art and post these things online. There was a couple of companies I think that were looking for exchange workers, I guess. Yeah, so that's the how do I call this? That's the program that I joined. Yeah. So yeah, I worked in a design company for a couple of years. Yeah.
Were there any creative challenges that were like different to the way we do filming here in Uganda compared to Norway?
Yes, Scandinavian design is very simple, very simplistic, and they don't like clutter. So coming from a space where like more is more, a place where less is more, it was an interesting adjustment. But funny thing is, I think yeah, but it wasn't a very big adjustment. Yeah, wasn't that much of an adjustment for me. I
How you approach film now? You say you find that you could appreciate that way of approach a bit. It suited you probably better than a typical client in Uganda.
yeah, so but the design background has a lot of impact on my visual style. So now, when I'm making my films, of course, I've done some films after for other people. Like I've directed for some people in Nigeria. And what I've learned about myself is that I like simplicity. Even in the cinematography, I like simplicity. Even in the edit, I don't like to cut just because I have another shot. You know. So I like things that simple. And again, you tend to have a clash when you're working with people that have that mindset of more is more. Yeah, so yeah, tends to happen.
It's interesting hearing your journey and your beginnings. I can see how you still manage to collect knowledge even without necessarily or with skipping university, because that's a question I was wondering how you got all this much knowledge, how you got to where you are without doing a course there. But I can see you collected knowledge, from the time your dad got you a computer and you were practicing and the internships and the exchange to Norway. So I can see where you collected what I would call maybe like your university, but not necessarily traditionally.
Yeah, I am a firm believer that you don't necessarily need school for education. Education is out here in the public, and you learn better from like the real world, especially now. I don't even see the purpose. Like, what are they teaching you in university that you can't learn, that you can't find for yourself online? It's crazy. It's crazy. Because isn't it better to learn from the people that are actually doing the thing? You know, I think I would rather learn. I would rather learn from like an actual doctor that's practicing than the guy that wasn't able to make it into that and they ended up teaching. And no offense to teachers.
That's important or is mandatory to the theory.
It's why and you know what you need to fix. Yeah, the theory and the practical. You know, if you I've taught some of my brothers out like photography and cinematography, but I've realized that if they're interested, I just give them a camera. I don't have to tell them that, oh, you see, the sun needs to be this way, you need to light like this. Because when I'm telling them these things, it becomes a bit too much information for them to comprehend. But once they start filming, and they just jump into it, they start filming, it ceases to be information retention. Now they start getting solutions to problems they have, as opposed to just cramming, you know.
Yeah.
So an example, I gave my brother a camera. I tried to explain to him apertures and all these things, and he was like, "What?" So I told him, you know what, just shoot. If it looks good, just film. So he starts working. I starts doing all this. Eventually, he's like, "How do you get that blurry background?" So now he's asking a question that he's going to actually use right now. So I tell you, oh, you remember the thing I told you before of the aperture, right? So this is how it works. You do this, you do this. So he only learns that to solve the problem he has now. And the next time he's like, but how do you get that thing to do? And then I'm like, okay, so now you see, you have to frame like this. And then so by the time we're done, like now he has amazing photographs, and some of this knowledge, it almost feels like it came naturally to him, but it didn't. It's just that he got the practical side of things first, and he was given a chance to make mistakes. And for every mistake he made, he had a question like, why is this thing looking like this? And then I educate him with the theory. I throw him a bit of the theory, and the theory sticks because he needs it right now. But if someone pumps you with information you need and information you don't need, in the end, you end up not keeping any. So what happens is when you jump into the practical part of things, you're blank, just like everyone else. And now you have to start going back to the theory again, you know, which is a wrong way of doing things. You understand?
Mm.
I believe the only time you should do theory first is with doctors. You don't want someone taking a chance on you first and then they learn later.
And then they
But
learn.
with other things, when I was learning how to drive, uh, that's the gas, that's the brake. That's the thing you use to not hit people. Jump in. And then anytime you're like, why is everyone stopping here? You're like, okay, you can't drive on the red light, you know? So I believe I learned faster than someone who had to go and sit around and learn, okay, this is this sign is this means this means that. Um, it just doesn't work like that, to my brain at least. So I think we need more practicals and less theories. Yeah.
Right.
I forget what the question was, but
It was
okay,
practical in
perfect.
comparison to theory. It's perfect response. Let's delve into your milestone, Girl in the Yellow Jumper. This film garnered a lot of attention. Did that surprise you?
Yeah, it surprised me to an extent, but I think what got the attention was mostly the trailer. So when I was starting the film, again, that film was me jumping into the deep end and figuring out things later. So I made a lot of mistakes as I was just jumping in. But during the process, I was getting better and better and better and better. So towards the end, I knew more than I knew at the beginning. So I could see all the mistakes that I made at the start, but I couldn't change anything. So through my experience that I got through the process, I made a trailer. And I think the trailer was quite intriguing and quite interesting. So that's what initially caught everyone's attention. It kind of became viral in a way for a while, and people were excited about the film, and people wanted to. And I was terrified because I knew that the movie is not as good as the trailer. So I was terrified for a while, and then luckily or unlucky, COVID happened, so the movie couldn't premiere in cinemas. And for me, that was a good thing. It was a blessing because it was, I think, the equivalent of if you have a boxing match. Let's say I have a boxing match with Floyd Mayweather, and I train and I have all these Instagram videos that make me look like I am so fast and I'm so good and I'm unstoppable. And everyone is like, he is beating Mayweather. He is definitely beating Mayweather. And then I get hit by a bus like 2 days to the fight. So I don't die. I go to like intensive care or whatever. It would be a good thing for me because then people would think, if only he wasn't hit by that bus, you know? So that's the same thing that happened to me. I felt like COVID helped me. People kept thinking that, if it wasn't for COVID, that movie was going to be amazing, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what I thought for that time. But then later on, someone reached out to me. They had seen the trailer, they had forwarded it to someone, and Netflix, the opportunity to sell it to Netflix had arose. So I was excited about the idea that finally getting our movie on a big platform. But I was also terrified by the fact that then people will go and watch it and they will know that I'm a fraud.
Oh.
So it was a bittersweet moment. So it happened. A lot of people, there are people out there that, like, when you watch a film, let's say you watch a movie from Congo, and you know that the people that made it, the situation they were in, and the experience they have and stuff. When you watch it, there's a way you watch it with that eye. I'm like, yeah, I know what these people are going through and whatnot. When my movie was on Netflix, a lot of people didn't watch it with that eye. A lot of people watched it expecting it to be like a Hollywood film.
Mm.
And the scrutiny, the criticism. Of course, it wasn't. I mean, I've been an artist all my life, so criticism to me is not. It's not the same like for most people. It doesn't feel like an attack on me personally. It feels like an attack on the project, on the work, and the work is not perfect, of course, so it's expected. So I didn't take it to heart. And of course, this movie, I'd done it in 2020 and it came out in was it 2022 something? I don't remember when it came out on Netflix, but I'd done it a
A
while
few
back.
years
So
ago.
I'd had enough time to come to terms with what I hadn't done properly. In fact, by the time it got to Netflix, I had 2 short movies already on YouTube, you know.
Mm.
So a lot of times when people would say that, this is trash, the writing is ridiculous, I was like, no, wait, check out this one that I just made recently. You'll see that there's improvement. And yeah, to people that actually wanted to see an improvement, they would go and check it
They would
out.
find it.
They would find it and they would see the improvement. And then to people who just wanted to criticize for criticizing, of course, they're like, nah, I'm not interested. Yeah.
So you didn't
But
expect the movie to go beyond Uganda?
no, I didn't. Well, when I was making the film, I felt like I wasn't intimidated by. I'm not even now. Um, I'm of the view that if you make a project like really good, there's no reason why you shouldn't cross over. I'm still of that view.
Mm.
I'm the type of person that doesn't believe in the notion that white people don't watch black movies or this type of group doesn't watch this. So I believe that if it's good, they'll watch it because there are movies that they've watched. We've watched Korean movies, we've watched Indian movies, we've watched. If it's compelling, it's compelling. So if it doesn't cross, there's a problem. There's something that I've not done correctly. I've always been of that belief. So when Girl in the Yellow Jumper, when I was initially, when I was creating the idea and I was starting the shoot, I was convinced that it would cross, But when I was done with it, then I watched it and I was like, this can't even. I wouldn't even put this on YouTube.
Mm.
So when Netflix, actually, when they reached out after the trailer, in the email where I sent the full film for them to watch, I even wrote that the film is trash. It's not as good as the trailer.
Really?
Yeah, because I don't know. I just couldn't. I don't know what the word is, but I guess I'm a bit too hard on myself
That's what
sometimes.
I
So I
was
was
going to
like,
say. I think when you make something, you're usually more critical of it than people outside,
yeah,
probably.
but again, because of my drawing years, for a long time I drew and I was never satisfied. But there's a couple of drawings that I did where I was like, there's nothing you can tell me. This is
Mm.
perfect. Yeah, there's like 4 drawings in like out of like 1,000 drawings. So it's the same thing with movies. I believe the movies that I look at and I'm like, okay, this is not very interesting or this is not very good. Yeah, there is something wrong with it. But then the one like 16 rounds was pretty okay for me. I think it was like close enough to what I intended. Ubuntu uppercut, close to what I intended. So I believe when I get a perfect one, and by perfect I mean like close to the intention, I'll be happy. I'll say that that movie is good. But then I won't really care what anyone else thinks because I've gotten to that level where it has made me happy. But for like Girl in the Yellow Jumper, just didn't. It wasn't there.
Girl in the Yellow
It wasn't
Jumper,
there.
did you have a message or thing that you were trying to put across to the audience?
No, no, no. I didn't have a message. And actually, when it comes to message, and I could be wrong about this, I feel like a movie that's made for a message usually sucks. I believe that the message comes after. It's the same thing with paintings and drawings and whatnot. When
Mm.
you're drawing, sometimes you're inspired by something. Someone might be inspired by a beautiful woman, right? Then they make a painting, and then as they're painting, ink spills. Then they that looks interesting. Then they go with it. Then they start adding all these things, and then they're like, as they're trying to fix the ink, something happens to the face, and they're like, this looks like beauty fading. Then they start emphasizing that point. Then they start adding things to sell that idea. So in the end, they call the painting fading beauty. They didn't start out like that, right? It was something else, but then the process turned it into something else, and now it's that thing. You understand?
I understand it so well.
Exactly. So go on.
I read the same process from Stephen King, or there's a very good writer who
Hmm.
said when he's building characters, oftentimes he doesn't even know how the villain is, and he just
Exactly.
writes. And then at the end, he
Exactly.
realizes, man, the whole time it was this guy, but he's the one who was writing the book.
Exactly. And the first time in my life that something like that happened was when I was writing 16 rounds, specifically the scene where the lady goes to visit the guy in prison. Now, I wanted the lady to tell the guy all these things, and originally the guy was supposed to just sit and listen. But as I'm writing, I just write the guy gets up and he tells the guard that we're done here, and he walks away. And now I'm thinking, but she needs to tell him this stuff. If he walks away, then what happens? And I wrote that myself, but now I'm thinking it ruins everything that I wanted to do. But that's what that character would do. The
Mm.
character wouldn't just sit there and listen. So, me as the writer, anytime I'm writing a script and the character decides for themselves, it makes it very hard for me to write, but that's when it's good. So I'm writing a film, and it has happened now. It happens more often, and I try to embrace it. Like, for example, let's say you're writing a movie, and in the end, they shoot someone in the head, right? In the end. So now you're starting to write the movie, and your guy gets the gun, and the person they're supposed to shoot in the end shows up. And now you're like, why aren't they shooting them now? Like, why? So the character just shoots them, and now you have nothing all the way to the end because they've done the thing they're supposed to do at the end,
The
that
end.
they've done it now. But now you realize that, you know what? It was going to be boring for us to jump through hoops, 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 hoops up to the end where they shoot the guy. They've shot the guy now. So I have to come up with something else to do at the end. So a lot of the scripts that I've been writing now are like that. You have people planning to do something, and then the police shows up immediately, you know? And now that plan is dead. They need to figure out something else. Or maybe a person is playing around with something, and it's like things that characters make the decisions. So it makes it really hard for you to have these themes, the themes that what's the message. And I guess with Girl in the Yellow Jumper, I took it to the extreme side. But if I was writing that movie again now, I think I would reemphasize more on that theme of no good deed goes unpunished. Because I felt when I watch it now, I felt like that was more of what it was saying. Because when you watch the film, everyone that helped someone ended up paying for it. When the cop helped the hitchhiker, he got something bad happened to him. In the end, when this young man stopped to help the old man, he got something. When the girl in the yellow jumper tried to help this kid that got molested, she paid for it. Like everyone, But I guess I wasn't equipped with the skills to pull those things and make them a bit more visible.
And yet, Lookman, that message came through because that's what we also concluded. I was watching that with some of my friends here, and we were
Really?
discussing it. Yes, we were discussing it, and we
Okay.
said at the beginning,
Yeah.
I forget his name, Maurice Killer, the policeman. He
Yeah.
told this story about no good deed goes unpunished,
Yeah.
and that was at the end of the movie. We tied. That's
Yeah.
what the conclusion we came up with, and yet it came through.
Even at the beginning of the movie where you have this guy, this professor telling a story on TV, he also talks about a frog that helps a
The
scorpion
scorpion.
cross a river, and the scorpion kills the frog.
We said that
So
too.
yeah,
The the
so
the
that
the old man at the end.
exactly. So the whole story it ties itself after, but because I was naive, so I didn't really know how to um, drive some of these points home better with using characters. That's why some people might see it, some people might not see it. But if it was well executed, then it would be obvious to everyone. Uh,
So
yeah,
all in all, I
go on.
think what an interesting thing I picked from what you've said is mistakes and distortion can end up making spectacular art.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because when you're doing art, there's really no perfection. It's hard to get. It's hard to get it, and sometimes you even strive not to get it. Sometimes you intentionally distort things. I have right now I have a couple of scripts that I've finished writing. These are scripts that I've had in my head burning since I was a child, but I've only recently gotten the faculties to execute them. So I have like three scripts that I've finished writing. One of which is closer to the truth about my own life growing up. But again, it's a bit too naked to just have it like that. So I add in all these fictional things to hide the some of the insecurities that are in there, because you can't write about yourself without exposing too much of yourself.
Yeah,
There's things you don't
it's
want
not
people to know
easy.
about you. So when you write about yourself, you end up having to add, comic things, almost cartoonish characters that make you feel safe to have it out there, because then no one will think this is true, obviously, because look at how comical these people look, Yeah, and
You've
it's been
spoken.
a crazy journey. Sorry?
You've spoken about taking these liberties in a movie, and if I understood you well, I think you were trying to see how much of these liberties you can take in the girl in the yellow jumper. But I see
Yeah.
that it's written on, it's based on a true movie except for the names. Everything else
Yeah.
is, help me clear that.
Yeah. So I actually wrote that a few days before I exhibited the film. So from the beginning, it was just a thing made up mostly. But then towards the end, I was like, so boring. But if I wrote that it's based on a true story, I believe people would watch it differently. When I'm watching a movie and I know it's fiction, I know it's Spider-Man, there's a way I watch it. But if I'm watching a movie and I know it's based on true events, there's a way I'm more attentive and I'm trying to learn. So that was more of a tool that I used just to get people's attention, I guess. But and maybe something like that happened somewhere, but not to my knowledge. Yeah.
Okay.
But also I was also trying to emphasize the point. Every time people hear that this movie is based on a true story, they tend to think that it is actually based on a true story, but there's no such thing. Even movies that are based on like true events or true stories or whatever, they are highly, highly, highly dramatized because real life it just doesn't have the structure of
Mm.
a drama, Real life doesn't necessarily flow like that. So for real life to be interesting, you need to spice it up with drama and make it, more interesting. And also, anytime a Ugandan comes to you and they're like, "Oh, I have this amazing story. It really happened." When they say it really happened, they think that the mere fact that something happened makes it more interesting, which is so not true. Because, in fact, when I'm writing, even if I'm writing a true story, if you want that true story to die, you stick to that true story. You'll see how quickly it
Interesting.
will die. If you stick to it, it will die. But when one of the best writing advice I've ever had from someone was, don't let truth keep you from like good drama. So if something truly happened and this is the truth, but to get drama out of it, I have to add this. This is more important than the truth. Yeah.
That's the
So there's no
art
such
of
thing as
filmmaking.
yes. If you
You
want to make like a true story, you see, even documentaries, they're meant to be, even the news is meant to be the truth, but we know it's not. It's also dramatized.
That's true. On that point of people approaching you with ideas, I'm definitely going to delve a bit more into that. But I want to first finish, particularly the girl in the yellow jumper and this phase of your career. I think you mentioned Netflix confronted you with a lot of paperwork. If you enjoyed today's episode and are passionate about African excellence and transformative leadership, then you are in for more. Be sure to check out this video here and our next episode where we dive deeper into African innovative solutions. Don't forget to subscribe and share this video with someone that finds value in these stories. And finally, we want to hear from you. Comment below a guest that you would like us to feature or a subject that you are curious about. Your ideas fuel our mission, and your voices matter in shaping the conversations that we bring to life. Stay curious, stay inspired, and I'll catch you here next time on The Roar.